From Health-vision.AI, Brian Green, who will rock the lavalier. So give him a second.
Hi. I talk with my hands a lot. I mean, like, gesture very widely, so it's really hard for me to use a handheld mic. But we'll do what we can. I feel like just sticking this in my pocket, right? Or wrapping around my neck. Will this work? Okay. Back to the Gen X thing, following Michael here, right? So my talk's from prompts to pipelines, tips to power up your ROI. How many people know He-Man and Skeletor? Oh, good, thank God, because I did a talk sometime where people did not recognize my images at all. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, tying my talk, as I go through a few points here really quickly, without a lot of words on slides, but just tying this to the core business challenges, right? And I'm going to propose that ungoverned prompts are a real threat to your ROI. We've already heard some people talk about this. My argument is also that the agentic AI framework opens this up even more and makes it much more challenging. I'm not going to read these 4 business challenges to you. You can kind of read them for yourself, and I'll be coming back to these at the end, right? So this is just a preview of where we're going with this, just so you don't think I'm just, crazily focused on Skeletor. So, several problems. Prompts widen your attack surface, right? Now here we're talking mainly about unstructured or free-form prompts, right? Which is what I think most people do. They just talk to their chat GPT or type in some random crap and not even spelled correctly. Worst thing you can do. You really need to have structured prompts, number one. We'll come back to that. Prompts are brittle and insecure. What does that mean? Again, we're going to talk about this more in a second. Okay. Prompts don't scale or age well. The age is a big problem. We'll talk about what this means for you, what you actually need to do in terms of operations. And scalability is also a challenge, particularly again, if you're not using structured prompts, you're going to have a real problem with scalability. Prompts break audit and compliance. This is one of the biggest problems. I am, number one, governance first, focused when I talk about AI. And secondly, I'm focused on thinking about the increased risk, cybersecurity, which we've heard about just a little bit ago, and what that brings to the table, particularly as we're expanding into agentic AI. So all these things add up to a hidden drag on your AI ROI, right? It's not just that balance sheet. It's not just great data from PwC earlier, but it's not just those things. We need to talk about some other things to help amplify, understand the risk, whether we call it ROH, or where we come back to what I'm going to call risk-adjusted AI ROI. So, I call this talk by the power from prompts to pipelines because I wanted to use the pipelines in the kind of cute little title. But I'm actually going to talk about a little bit more than just pipelines, right? I'm also going to talk about LLM ops. What's the difference? Okay, well, pipelines are your end-to-end use case specific workflow that turns your input into a specific outcome, right? So it may be that's a conversational agent that's used in customer service. That's a use case, right? It may be some predictive model used in healthcare. That's a use case. So those are your pipelines. And they help give you the power to actually achieve an ROI. But that's not good enough, particularly in today's world where we're progressing very quickly. We have agentic AI. Workflows are a little bit different. I'm going to argue that you need an LLM ops control framework, and that's a shared discipline and tooling, which sounds a lot like software engineering, software development. And I found myself coming full circle from 2 years ago, where I'm like, okay, software is dead. AI is going to kill it. Now to, we still need the way we version software, the way we do software ops. We need that, but we just need to call it LLM ops, right? And then it'll be called agentic AI ops at some point probably. But right now we're focusing on LLMs. That's the primary way that we're surfacing AI, generative AI. So you need a lot of these things in place, which I would say are LLM ops, in order to have the ROI truly calculable. So the LLM ops control your risk, cut expected losses. And I'll talk about this a little more in the next slide, but essentially, I'm already introducing this in terms of the agentic AI, kind of bringing out beyond just your traditional cybersecurity, what you do. Here's your governance first, guards that then become LLM ops. How do you turn them into actual solutions, LLM ops? These are only 4 of these 6 or 8, depending on how you break it down. These first 2, if you do them and you do them well, will actually eliminate about 70% of the typical expected loss drivers, right? So data leaks, prompt injections, malformed inputs. These 2 controls themselves do a huge amount of work for you, okay? This is a link, HTML link, takes you to a checklist I have, top 8 controls that'll slash your expected loss ratio, essentially, on a generative AI project. So I have go through 8 of these items. You'll see it doesn't exactly match. It's hard to do that. And then, you'll see if you go to that link, you'll see it's on our website, what that looks like, okay? Here I'm sharing you a little bit more eye chart. Sorry about that. I don't expect you to read it that quickly. Again, there's a link to checklist. You can find that on my website as well. And this is all kind of just outlining what you can do in 4 weeks, 30 days. Now, you can't do this for all of your prompts. Pick one structured prompt that you think is kind of the most important to your value. I forget the speaker earlier that did that kind of rating system where you kind of go through your use case, your planning, give it a score that'll help you. But you essentially start with that one. Go through this process. This is a 30-day/4-week process, and you'll be able to quantify and tie it to very specific success markers, right? The 8-point checklist has some of these success markers turned into more of a KPI type format. So if you want a number, right, it'll help you as you're kind of calculating your cost. Yeah, so risk-adjusted ROI matrix. This is the formula. Here is that part of it, the expected loss part of it. And essentially, you see kind of the expected loss here for slow, high, depending on what your use case is. And then the payback speed goes from slow to fast. Essentially, you want to move things to this category, right? Your green category. Governance, and I include the LLM ops into that governance framework, lowers that expected loss term in this equation and will push your use cases into the green. Okay. Now the low risk over here, your sandbox or sandbox protected kind of internal or however you want to structure it within your company. This is the lowest risk use cases, but you still they're slow in terms of rolling them out and getting the data you need. So you really want to move things over here. This is just like a quick and dirty discussion. I haven't published the actual blog article where I go through and talk about the why, all that for the ROI adjusted risk. I'm doing a presentation in 2 weeks, I think, where I'm talking about that more and will be tied specifically to a marketing-based use case. And if people are interested in what that looks like, besides just the 2 checklists I'm sharing with you, eventually, after I do that talk in 2 weeks, I think it's on the 18th, here in Philly, it'll be dumped on my GitHub. So you can actually look at what the code might look like for some of the pieces there. So, He-Man comes to saving us with risk-adjusted ROI for the win. And as I argue, you need the pipelines, of course, but you also need the LLM ops, and you'll shift from chaos, you shift from Skeletor coming in, breaking your crap, and give you ordered version control, permissioning, automated human in the loop, as well as the automated controls that you need for auditability. I didn't talk about this specifically. It's probably actually on the table. But something I'm always shocked about is people don't ever seem to retire prompts, right? But again, thinking of software and version control, you have these structured prompts. Maybe you have 100, maybe you have 50. I don't know what you have, right? They need to be retired. You can't use them forever because that risk is there, right? Prompt injection, things like this. And you can do a lot of that versioning and retiring of your prompts simply through permissioning, right? So that's one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it. You'll need to do some other controls, but that's a kind of a simplified way to do it. Tying in AI to the increased cybersecurity risk, what you need to do to make this operational and scalable, right? Because the ROI doesn't really matter if you aren't adjusting it for your security risk. My takeaway from that is, as a consultant, I can help people with this process. I can actually help you get the budget that you'll need for increased cybersecurity, right? Because your CEO or whoever may be like, oh no, we're not spending any money on that. We have everything we need. We haven't had any problems, right? Agentic AI is increasing your risk quantifiably, maybe 70%, maybe 100%, maybe 300%, right? So you do need a bigger budget, and you need a new team. You need an LLM ops team. They need to be working with your DevOps team. They need to be working with your security, your CISOs, right? Now, it doesn't need to be necessarily a team of 10 people. You might start with one. You might start with people that are split across some teams. But LLM ops is becoming a specialty that we really need to focus on. Again, I don't usually read the text off my slide. If you've already read it by the time I finished talking on it. But you can see, I think, hopefully convinced you that we can talk about ROI, but adjust it, appropriately for risk that depends on the risk tolerance. Some use cases and some companies have a very high risk threshold tolerance, so you don't necessarily do much adjustment. Others have a very low tolerance for risk, and so they need to do a huge adjustment. Here's all the ways to contact me. A lot of stuff to link here. This is my LinkedIn QR code, so that's a primary way. My GitHub there, as I said, those tables that are turned into the code part of it are not in my GitHub yet. They'll probably be up there. My longer talk where I do the marketing example is on June 18th, so I'll have it up there by June 18th for sure. And then that's other ways and other things that I do that you can reach me or find out more information or whatever. Blogs, stuff like that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.